Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 127. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation of providing the finest quality, design, and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From racks, barbells, and plates to dumbbells, benches, flooring, storage, and much more, Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Cerberus is an organization that truly puts the athlete first and actively works towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus has quickly evolved into a global brand symbolizing quality and trust. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code strength_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. The kilt is a tradition dating back centuries. Worn by nobles, military, and fashionistas, the kilt has been through it all and at times banned, at other times celebrated. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com and be sure to use our promo code TSG to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Coach Jared Heumann. Jared is the director of strength conditioning at UT Permian Basin, where he oversees the training for the football and women's basketball teams. Heumann arrived at UTPB in 2020 as a graduate assistant coach and was promoted to full-time assistant in 2021 and later took over as a head strength coach after 1 year before being named the director of strength conditioning in 2023. Prior to arriving at UTPB, he served as an assistant coach at Shippensburg University in 2020. He's also spent time as an intern coach at Binghamton University from 2018 to 2020 and in the private sector at BX Strength and Speed Development in 2017. A former college football player at Hartwick College, Heumann continues to train himself in the weight room. He is an avid lifter and enjoys cooking when he is not training in the weight room. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Jared Heumann. What's going on, everybody? Today we've got Coach Jared Heumann on the show. What's going on today, man?
What's up? How we doing?
Hey, we're doing good. We got going a little bit before this. It's kind of holiday season. Yeah, open hours for both of us are kind of kicked in the open swing. So it's kind of a ghost town, which is great for us because we can kind of connect and get you on the show today. So I appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, Ghost Town. I mean, we talked a little bit. I only had like 3 to 5 athletes probably come in, and they kind of were just doing their own thing. Because it's open hours. I'm gonna let them relax, have a nice little reset on their body instead of me just yelling or coaching. So a lot
Hey,
of
it's an athlete reset, but it's also a coach reset. So it's you got to take it when you can. So I'm glad we can connect today, man. And really let's dive into what got you coaching, what got you involved in training. Like how you really got started in the strength game before like sports playing growing up to kind of what you do today and how you got involved in coaching. Like how was that inception, man?
Yeah, I feel like it's a stereotypical strength coach. Played sports in high school, uh, went to college, played. I mean, when I mean played, I got injured. I'm gonna be honest. I was a good high school athlete. I'm not gonna say I was great. I just worked harder than most people. I like to think. I mean, it's probably also just a skewed opinion at times. But I was a really bad kid, so it hindered my recruiting process. So where I went to, it's not where I wanted to go to or where my dreams were. So right when I got injured my freshman year, I kind of just fell out of love with football. So from there, I kind of self-destructed, kind of just enjoyed my freshman semester. But what I mean by that, I stopped going to classes. I just enjoyed it. Used the injury as a, hey, I'm injured. I'll figure out later. Kind of just being young and dumb. So then after that, I mean, I knew I did not want to be at the school where I was at because I was planning on just, playing my college career, becoming a history teacher, and just roll with that. But after I got hurt, again with the self destruction, I kind of just had an epiphany in myself. I got to figure out what I want. So I took a gap year to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Knew I wanted to be around athletics. Didn't know if I wanted to do athletic training, physical therapy, strength and conditioning. So I went and shadowed every possible thing that I could. Went to PT clinics. I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. I'm around a whole bunch of older people, like grandpas and stuff. Like it's really great, but it's just not the thing that excited me. Went to personal training stuff. Looked at that again with moms and dads. That really didn't interest me as much. Athletic training spiked my interest. But then I sent emails because I was living in upstate New York to pretty much almost every Division I school that I could that had football. Emailed the University of Buffalo. Don Day was there. He said, "Yeah, come up." So I drove up to Buffalo 2.5 hours, slept in my car at night. Woke up at I think like 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe 5 o'clock. Went to the facility, watched them lift. Right when the athletes came in, the energy, I'm like, "Oh, this is what I want to do." But I had no idea how I was going about. I knew I was going to school for exercise science already because I wanted to go something on that path, but I didn't even know anything. Watched the list, and then I just shop talked them the entire time. Like, yeah, what do you like? How do you even get into this? They're like, experience. First off, degree is going to help, and then experience. So then 2 weeks later, again, I was living home, just going to school online, so I can just work as well, kind of just pay my way through. Sent an email to Division I school, Binghamton University and American East Conference to Coach McGovern. Said, hey, I don't know if you guys do internships, but I would love to intern. Just getting interested. Led into an internship. One semester in, they realized, oh, he's coming back, and then I kept coming back. And literally, I was interning my entire undergrad while I was there, essentially. So it started off as an internship to them saying, hey, like you can have a couple teams. You can have either the wrestling heavyweights, you can take over. And then COVID hit, knew my time was done, went to Shippensburg University as a volunteer assistant, worked with a whole bunch of teams, fell back into love with football because football was there. And then came down to the University of Texas Permian Basin as a graduate assistant. I was a GA for 6 months, I think. Full-time assistant left, kind of just walked into my old boss's office. I said, I want to be the full-time assistant. He's like, well, you've been working your butt off. So yeah, here it is. Full-time assistant for a year and a half. He left to go to Duke University. I kind of had to do a Shark Tank pitch because he left during football camp of why I should be the head strength coach. Got promoted to head strength coach. I was that for a year. Then I got promoted up to director, I think 8 months ago, maybe a year. I mean, that's just a title change. Let's be honest.
Hey, it's a title change, but like at the same time, like it shows your progression. It shows like the school and like the department and the coaches are invested in you too. Like there's not a lot of places where you get to have that growth and like for them to go from grad assistant like to a full-time position and not really open the search like, hey, this is our guy, he's already here. Like that says a lot to like the work ethic and everything you were doing before because I don't know the stats on it, but most people don't stay in a position like go from grad school and stay at that school. A lot of
Yep.
times like you're going to a place that has like multiple grad positions, knowing well that they're never going to be turning into an assistant position because like that school is just exercise science laden and they use those positions to as their like quote unquote full time, or they're just such a small staff. Like people are going to stay there forever and as assistant coach. So like that's a huge compliment like to the work ethic and everything that you were doing for you to stay there. And obviously to be able to pitch yourself and kind of like say, this is I want this job and this is the things that I can bring to the program. Like we know football coaches can pretty much go out and get whoever they want a
Yep.
lot of places. So that's again, like you were doing the work behind the scenes before like that opportunity was even available. Like for you to turn it on like right when that coach leaves, they would have known like right away and be like, he doesn't really want this. Like, but if you're doing it day in, day out all the time and someone just so happens to leave, it's like, why wouldn't you hire that person that's been grinding every single day versus just when the opportunity was available?
No, most definitely. I think the craziest thing, like, I don't like everyone kind of tells me like what you did, like GA to assistant to a head, like it doesn't really happen at the same university. Like it's rare. So the impact, but this past year, like there was kids that just graduated from are done playing football. We came in together. He was a freshman. I was a GA. So as me seeing them grow up to become young adults, they saw me grow into a role every single year. So like the turning point and everything, and it, like that's why this year meant so much to me because I came in with those guys, and it's I feel like now in the life of strength and conditioning because everyone's jumping, you really it's hard to see people graduate out, especially with the transfer portal, with just with every single sports. So it was a I don't know, it was a like people we talk about family and like love is like I just saw like my little brothers graduated or something. I saw them grow up right in front of me while they watched me grow up from a GA to who was somewhat vocal but didn't have the lead to had the second lead to had the full command. I mean, they saw my growth as well. So I don't know. It was a nostalgic feeling.
Yeah, and you're not too far off in age from them too, like at the same time. Like even though you're in a role where you're trying to assist them on the field and you're preparing them in the weight room like for their sport and like to play football, at the same time, like you can pretty much relate to those guys too. Like it's still a professional setting, but that's a great feeling. There's a lot of people that bounce around so often, like you said, you don't really get to see that happen. And now, like with the transfer portal and NIL and all those other things that are kind of happening, yeah, those chances are few and far between, even more than they were before. Like I've been at 8 schools, like 4 of them full time, and I've only ever seen like freshmen to seniors twice at the same school
Yeah.
just from kind of how it worked out and having to kind of take the next job or being like kind of forced to move on from a place. And it's a great feeling, especially like when you can kind of put your roots in and see people come back after time too. Next year, that'll kind of be the thing. If people come back and they come back for that homecoming game for football, and now you get to see them and hear about all the stories of what they're doing like post collegiately too. Like that'll be kind of one of those nostalgic things that you can kind of look back on as well.
Yep. No, most definitely. I mean, I've already gotten wedding invitations from like past athletes. I didn't coach as long, but from the freshmen, like I feel like this class that stayed, it's like we both have that feeling towards each other. And it's I mean, again, like the both growth in between, like something special and it's unique and it's really not something that you hear of that much.
No, definitely. Hey, so kind of talking about what you said when that head position opened up for football, and like you were already in assistant role, like you knew the team pretty well, like you knew you'd already been promoted like from a graduate assistant to that full time. What were some of the things that like you kind of put into that like Shark Tank pitch you talked about? Like what, like obviously the coaches kind of know the X's and O's, and you probably have like some things you would do differently than the previous coach. A lot of things probably still similar too, because that's kind of the system that you were most notably known for, like working within it. But how did you go about like really selling yourself to them and like selling the vision of you kind of being in charge of the program? Because I think a lot of coaches are hesitant to like really understand the impact of what a coach can do and how you project that value and worth to a sport coach.
I mean, I think one, it was the perfect timing for me to get it, to kind of pitch myself. Like we were 7 days into fall camp. I'm going to be honest, and I still say it, if this happened during the summer, there's no way I would have been the head. They would have went and hired. But do I say, looking back at it, was it a quick hire? 100%. But did I elevate the strength and conditioning program? 100%. So during that system, uh, I had pretty much went to our head coach, and then because he kind of already knew about the my former boss, him leaving, and again, it's yeah, like I'd lead with football, but it's the entire department as well that I oversee. Like yeah, we have 14 sports teams, 13, 14 that kind of just overseeing. Boss leaves, like who's overseeing the weight room now? Like who's the boss? And it was just when him leaving, it was just me and two GAs. So and this is right before practice. Pulled him into the office, and he looks at me. He's like, "Are you leaving?" And then I looked at him and said, "I'm gonna be honest. like at that time, it was the perfect system because I had a potential another opportunity at a different school. So with that, me talking to AD, is me just I didn't want to leave. I felt something after the summer that we had with football. It was I saw the growth and I saw everyone improve. And I kind of just pitched my vision of what I see. And of course, the head coach is like, I don't want to have crazy change going into the season. Like they got to meet a new strength coach and you're around them 24/7 essentially. Like me, I have already known every guy. My old boss, he pitched me to become it. So like I already had his back, and when he looked at me, he said, "You can take this." And again, he's one of my mentors I look up to. And when a mentor says that, you're like, oh, "Okay, I can actually do it." Of course, there's a little bit of second guessing inside, but then it's kind of just pitch my case to the football coach. He said, "Cool, I want you." Pitched my case to the AD. AD was kind of tossing and turning a little bit. Met with the men's basketball coach at like 11 o'clock. And then I found out at like 4 p.m. that they're promoting me up. So then we had a team meeting later that night. Uh, Again, head coach, my former boss, excuse me, kind of told them that they're leaving, got all sad. And then the kids were kind of asking, like, oh, well, who's the new guy now? And then he's like, well, hey, here's your new head strength coach. So then seeing the kids' reaction, I'm like, they support me right now. So cool. Like, let's start rocking and rolling now.
Yeah, to have that support and like especially have a head coach vouch for you and kind of put your name back in the hat and say like, hey, I have confidence like that you guys are in good hands. Like you already know like his body of work and everything that he's already done for the program. It and even with like a maybe a disparity between experience or like understanding of like how to run the program or experience running a program yourself, like that in itself like shows you can do it. And I've always kind of like shied away and like kind of scoff at people that say like, oh, well, if you're a head to be a head coach, you have to have head coach experience. I was like, well, how the fuck do you get head coach experience if you're never a head coach for the first time? Like you're being a gatekeeper where someone can't even get in there. Like people
Yep.
exhibit those character traits and they show that they're worthy of having like taking on those responsibilities. Like the only thing they don't have is that title. So like if someone is already doing all those things that constitute like the job description of a head coach, like why wouldn't you put someone that's already confident, someone that knows the system, knows the team, and like you already have full faith in the person that you had bought into originally is putting their blessing on you. Like that's
Yep.
it's a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, again, it was a fast process. Now looking back at it, we have a new football coach. We have a lot of new coaches here. So there's been a lot of changes happening. So again, when I came here 4.5 years ago, whatever it is now, like this university, this town's completely different. Like it's crazy to think that I'm one of the, I think, third longest like person on administration, maybe fourth, because of just of how much new blood essentially here. I'm like, I'm the old guy now. Like some coaches look at me, they're like, hey, where's this? I'm like, oh, I've been here for a while.
That probably helps though too, like being younger in that position and like being in a director role and like overseeing like the biggest team on campus and overseeing a staff and everything too. For people to come to you kind of as a resident expert because you're the one of the longest tenure people there, like it kind of solidifies your position like, hey, you know what you're doing, but also like if you need something done, you need information, like go to the weight room and like Jared will get you straight. He'll make sure that you got everything you need.
Yeah. The worst thing is whenever they ask where buildings are, because I'm gonna be honest, I just stay in our weight room. Like there's other buildings I would go to and stuff, but they're like, hey, where's this office at? There's that. I'm like, I can't help you. They're like, you've been here a while. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like this is my domain. Like I will venture out times, but I don't know exactly what floor and everything.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you too, the same way. Like there's been enough campuses I've been on and they start naming buildings that have like people's names and like donors from before. I was like, I've probably been on the academic side of campus like when I first started, when my keys don't work, there's like a department meeting like way over there or graduation or something, but I stay in my kind of corner. Like this, the
No,
athletics bubble is my bubble. You got a question over here, I'll help you out.
no, for sure. It's a unique bubble, especially when there's I mean it's the life of college too. There's turnover everywhere. Um, and I think it's the biggest thing that I've been blessed with. Again, there's headaches at times because you got to deal with new cultures, kind of just believe in all that stuff. So at times it's a headache. I mean, it's not a headache, but it kind of just stresses you out a little bit because you're like, oh, they don't know who I am and all this stuff. Like I'm not their guy, so now I got to go above and beyond. Like kind of like building that trust. It's almost happened almost every semester since I've been here with having new coaches. Now I understand that's a Division II life, especially where I'm at, like coaches with turnover. But I think it's been the best blessing for me and probably my staff as well. Like get to talk to coaches new. All right. Like what you did last offseason with that coach, they may not want that. So now you got to work with them as a cohesive thing because you're just an extension to their staff. So I think as the growth with the turnover rate here right now, and it's great because it keeps us learning constantly and it keeps everyone else learning. So why not just learn together and just go through this journey together?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it too. Like even if it's not maybe what you necessarily want, where you want a little bit of consistency with coaches and kind of build a culture and like establish things, like there are still some constants that happen. Like you're one of the constants in the weight room, so that puts athletes and administration and some of those coaches that still have you like at ease, but it does at the same time like keep you on your toes to like kind of pack more things into your toolbox and actually learn from different coaches that come in, have different schemes or come from different places, like things, don't like things. Like it keeps you flexible and adaptable the whole time. And like I think strength coaches are the biggest like jack of all trades because you've got to be a chameleon and be able to shift from one team coming in to another team coming in to an off day to an in season. Like there's all these kind of things that you have to do to like try to facilitate the best results and the best type of training environment you can. And if you're super rigid or you get upset when like things aren't consistent and they're always fluctuating, you're going to be really unhappy the majority of the time.
No, for sure. I mean, again, like this field, the adaptation is the biggest thing. I mean, we preach adaptation in the weight room, so we can't adapt in regular life, then kind of just hypocrites at one point. But no, I mean, love it as a challenge. Like I want coaches to challenge me, especially sports coaches. And at times, after a conversation, if it's a hard conversation, it will probably stress you out. It stresses you out. I mean, it stresses me out because I care so much about the student athletes, and I want them to produce the best. I want them to be the best athlete as they can, but also the best human after they're done with their college degree to contribute to society. So like that's why like it hurts me is because of how much care I have for them. So like I love having those tough conversations because no matter what on both sides, it's from a love and it's an understanding. But you got to have those tough conversations at times.
Yeah, you definitely have to have those tough conversations. Like, but you're right. Like being in the environment where kind of you like put yourself under that like the pressure of it, like it shows that you actually care. Like if you're going into a situation and you're not really worried about like how this session goes or like how these kids like interact in the weight room or what they're doing that day, like you just and you're apathetic, like you don't really want it anymore. And there's I I argue too with some people like I don't want to care more than the athletes.
Yep.
But there's a point in time where like that actually happens. Like there's going to be points in time where athletes come in and it's just like not their day. But if that's consistently happening, that's where I draw the line. But like there's coming in after a game and like you got to do recovery work or you have to do a post lift on a Sunday. Like I don't know many kids like half the team is probably going to be like, no, this sucks. This is
Yep.
terrible. But it's as long as it's not every single time and like you can change the room, but like it's got to come from the players a lot of the times too.
No, most definitely. I mean, I completely agree. And we kind of talk about it at times, like you know as well, like you always in your life, you always be a part of winning teams, losing teams, or 500 teams. During season, the teams that are winning, the joy is through the roof more than likely 100% of the time. Yeah, they're going to be tired and stuff, but most likely, like, yeah, we're winning. 500, again, it's just going to go with however those games went that week. If it's a losing team, you look and you're just like looking at zombies in the weight room at times. Like, of course, there's some outliers like the leaders that will try and all this stuff with every single sports team. But then you look at the losing teams, it's like zombies. And me, you look at it and you're like, all right, cool. If we're getting that skit of like losing, how can I get them to be locked in to kind of change their mentality? Or can I say one thing that can just flip a switch for them for that day? Or and then continuing and just build off that. So like I love seeing, I mean, of course, I hate losing. I mean, I hate losing at everything. I hate seeing losing. But as a growth as a coach, I think it's something that's a blessing to go through.
Yeah, you have to be able to kind of understand and utilize like the dynamic of those teams, no matter what those three situations are. If it's kind of up and down, or if it's like consistently winning, consistently losing, like you still have to be able to react and have those conversations with them and still keep them on track. Like as coaches, I feel like a lot of the times like you don't want the athletes and you don't want the teams that are like just riding the waves. You want to be able to kind of maneuver through and kind of keep it steady. So not let their highs get too high and their lows get too low so that you can be at your best on game day and like kind of shake off the losses, but not get too inflated at some of those wins too. And that's why coaches are like strength coaches, I think are so important because like you do drive, you're around the kids as much as you are, like you help drive the culture of like what the head coach kind of instills.
No, most definitely. I mean, the culture thing. That's what I've been kind of diving in more and more to, probably in these past, actually, probably this football season, because we didn't have the outcome that we wanted to. So it kind of just hits a reset for me. Um, and right now it's kind of the perfect time. I mean, dead period, like it's my reset. Like my whiteboard's filled out with things about what the plans are for the off season. Of course, the other sports teams, that's already done on my Excel because women's basketball is in season. And those are the only two sports teams that I work with, but overseeing everything else, it's like right when the season's done for me, it's like, hey, it's a reset, but cool. Now I'm back on the whiteboard trying to figure out of how to, yes, make them bigger, faster, stronger, but also be able to help our head coach to build that culture even more because I'm going to be with them every single day essentially in the off season. So now it's getting me more in the psychological side. So reading a little bit more. Again, we kind of talked a little bit about podcasts and all that stuff. This is again, I got some psychological books and psychology books. I'm gonna have to sit down and actually read those. So during winter break, I'm probably gonna be reading those a little bit, but just diving in more about learning about the mind more. And I think with that, I mean, I like to think it's going to help. I mean, we'll find out this offseason how that's going to go. But no, this again, it's just exciting when things don't go the way that you want to, and you got to kind of just adapt right after.
Yeah, and then you're taking the time and you're putting the forethought in to like actually move the needle. Like at the end of the day, like your season success is kind of based off whatever goals and like aspirations you had in place. And a lot of times you're not going to always get like you're not going to achieve those things. Like it's not just a complete throwaway, but for what you had planned, if it doesn't obtain those things, like you got to put a reset in. You got to kind of review what the season was and like figure out what went good, what went bad, and then try to adjust for the next season. Because like if you even if you win and you obtain every single goal, like you're not going to run back the same exact program you did
Yep.
before. You're not going to have the same team. You can't just completely copy and paste what you did the year before because you have different pieces. It's a different scenario, different places you're doing, like different teams you're playing. Like it's a people business, so you have to be able to adapt with it. So diving into kind of the psychology and like the communication styles and leadership styles and culture, I think that's way more important than a lot of the X's and O's and program and everything that we talk about.
No, for sure. I mean, I feel like programming's not going to change. I mean, yeah, technology's coming in, but the basic movements is the basic movements. At the end of the day, just teach them. And everything else, like we all talk about, hey, is there a special thing? There's like my aspect, like I'm still young, I'm 28, but I like to think with all my mentors that are a lot older and been in. I think I did the math the other day. Out of my tree, like really close coaching tree, they have 83 years of collegiate coaching. So with that, they always look at me like, keep it simple. Like, yeah, technology's coming in. Like, I'm blessed with having VBT. I'm blessed with having GPS with timers. Like, utilize that. But in the weight room, it's the meats and potatoes work that works still. So, like, and also everyone's still so novice. So, whatever they're going to do, they're going to have adaptations to get stronger. And with the portal now, you're not having those true long developments. So, I think that's where it's kind of just figuring out hey, you could either have a one and done guy that comes in that's there for 6 months. If you're lucky, maybe have him in May. Or, I mean, we had one and done guy that came in midsummer. I'm like, so I got July just to get him in shape for football. So
Wild.
there's certain things it's kind of just figuring out like where to go through. Of course, like I keep the freshmen like you're on that. I call it the Debo group from Friday. Let's look like Debo. So freshmen stay the same. Hey, let's teach you guys how to move. Let's get you strong. But with the returners, especially with the portal, it's kind of just figuring out like what can we do because it's going to be essentially a new team every year with new looks and new faces.
Yeah, that's the portal and all that stuff is starting to get feel like it's getting out of hand. And but I think you're right too. I've heard a lot of coaches saying the same thing. Like you kind of just as like the head coaches are basically recruiting every single class that they have. You're as a strength coach, you're kind of thinking like, hey, how can I get this person, how can I get this athlete like prepared for this season and think about it in like a 1 year chunk. If they stay, great, we can build off it. But I can't just anticipate that when a new athlete signs and he comes a freshman year that they're guaranteed to be here for four or
Yep.
5 years. Like it's they might move on. And the coaches expect the kind of results now. I have to be realistic to how to prepare them for the season and tell the coach like, hey, I don't know if they're ready to like play ball like their first year, but like you can use them sparingly. But maybe in 2 years they'll be good and be like, well, I don't know if he's going to be here for 2 years. Like
Yep.
it's such a mind game when like as like tacticians of what like we want to program for progression and for like the most potential and like, hey, back then, like most kids weren't just like high school and everything too. Most starting players weren't, they were juniors and seniors. Like
Yeah.
it there you saw the development happen and now we just worry about like the talent pool, like how can we get the best kid in and play him right away? And like I feel like most of those kids get injured, they transfer, like they play the system as much as possible. And we don't really get to do the fun part of actually like progress them and develop them over the course of their career because their career is with four different strength coaches.
Yep. No, most definitely. And that's where it's just like, again, I've been blessed with a few. I mean, there's still some, again, like, I think it's the junior class right now going in. Uh, yeah, junior class. They're kind of like, quote unquote, call them like my babies because that's my first freshman group that I was the head. And the ones that are still here, like, I look at them like, that's the development trend that you need. Then you look at some people and you're like, we got it's the rapid fire thing because again with the transfers, like most times if they're transfers, coaches want them to play. So now we got to get them ready. So what's the fastest way to do that? Well, we just got to do the basic stuff, and the basic stuff's the thing. And like that's where I think my philosophy's kind of changed a little bit of heavy on the field right now, and because before it was like weight room specific. Of course, I'm gonna blend everything, but if you're fast, I mean, it's going to transfer over the field. So, like, preach speed to our guys, and like our standards, like, you got to run 20 miles an hour. And like that, like, who's on that 20-mile-an-hour club? Um, so, again, the weight room part's been a huge point. Again, our bigs got to be strong and all that stuff. But I feel like what I've seen that, especially in the skill categories or the combos, that if they can move on the field, more than likely, again, you're going to be strong in the weight room too, and then you're going to be able to carry it over as well as the development pieces. More kind of just let's make sure that they can run.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Like that's you're still teaching them everything too,
Yep.
but it's easier to tie in like what they're doing on the field when you're already doing some stuff that closely like ties into the field because you're already on it versus kind of slow playing it like we used to do and like put them in a position where they're going to be stronger and like that hey this is going to show longevity. It's unfortunately, like you said, the transfers, when coaches bring them in, they're thinking of the missing piece they need. And when they get a transfer most of the time, they're like, well, they've already had success somewhere else. And we're hoping they have that same success in the same position and fill the gaps that we need. And we need it now. And it puts us in a position where you're like, you kind of have to bend the rules a little bit for them to kind of get them ready when you'd rather like almost introduce them to the system, like work them into the team. So like there's lasting success versus just like a quick like shot in the pan.
Yeah, that's why I feel like now it's great to have KPIs, and I still have them, but it's hard to achieve because I feel like KPIs were built again when the game first started. Yeah, hey, let's do this, but then you had that development phase. By their junior senior year, hey, they're going to be at that KPI mark. Now, again, there's some kids on our team that they hit it after one off season. I mean, you're just a dude at that point, and you're also just genetics just gifted you. So that's where it's like you look like KPIs as a whole team. It's hard, so therefore, and it's hard at a D2 that you look and be like, hey, let's make into individual needs now because I mean I don't have the coaches to do all that stuff, the individualized program. So with my things, like I got to break the individualized programs for the groups essentially, and it fascinates me because now, yes, it's more work, but it's more work to learn and continue, and let's see them adapt as well. Um, I mean, people are saying that they hate the portal. I mean, us as strength coaches, we probably do because we see new people. My side is I love it because it's a new challenge. I love challenges in life. Like, hey, cool, someone's in. Let's teach them how to move. Let's teach them how to run. Let's teach them how to squat. Let's do all this. And cool, if they already know how to do that from a previous strength coach, great. Now they just got to buy into my system.
Right. Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit like how you progress like from your time like grad assistant, move up to head and then director. Before we kind of touch on that, like with how you run football specifically, such a bigger program, and then like at a D2 school and like having the staff you do, like how do you kind of work your staff in to like assist you so you can start looking at KPIs, working a little bit more individual stuff with your football team? Is it like all hands on deck? Is everybody kind of helping and assisting? Do they work with like different roles? Because like big schools, like you have your five, you might have like fucking 50 interns
Yeah.
like down the road. But like how do you manage your resources, manage your staff, and try to give like a big team like football as much like care and coaching as possible?
So I'm blessed uh, to having a full-time assistant and two GAs. So we're at a staff of four. Sadly, right now we do have an kinesiology department, and that's one thing that I haven't had was any interns yet. When I was at Shippensburg, we had a lot of interns, and all of them, I think we had six, and all of them are college strength coaches right now. Either college strength coaches or in the private sector. So like I love that. I love the shop talks times and all that stuff. Especially as interns, GAs, like you just got to get them bought into your program and understand it. Let's continue the education, but I expect you to coach right away. Like my philosophy is I'm gonna throw you right into the fire, like it's sink or swim, essentially. I think that's the best way of learning. But when it comes to football, I'm blessed that we do have three lift groups on the off season. So it kind of spreads it out a little bit more. We have 15 racks on our platform, so we can spread it out as well. In the past, I kind of just had each coach man like for pretty much the five racks. They run it through the lift while I free roam. This year, I'm going to kind of tailor it a little bit differently. I'm going to have one coach be with the return to play guys coming back from any offseason injuries and all that stuff. Like, hey, that's your job for the spring. Like, get them back, work with the AT staffs. Yes, I'm here to talk to me for any questions. But also, you're huge communications to the AT staff. Figure out what they can do, get them back to playing the sport that they love. And then next, I'm going to take five racks. Another coach is going to take five. Another one's going to take fives. And we're just running that lift group. Like those five racks are our crew. Um, and we're just rolling through. And I'm going to cycle us through and kind of rotate us through so we don't feel like, hey, that's our group and kind of go through because we're going to have some new guys. Let's meet everyone. Let's get to know them. Let's figure out how everyone moves on the team instead of saying, hey, like this is your group for the entire year. I did that before, but I felt like as us as strength coaches, we only know select people on the roster. I want us to know everyone. Like me as a head director here, I only work with two sports teams. I oversee everything else. My goal is I want to know everyone's name that's a student athlete. So like when I don't have that much work to do, I go through rosters. I'm figuring out names, putting names to faces. So I know there are some people who are like, oh, how does Coach Heumann even know my name? Like he doesn't even work with us. Well, my job is to oversee the entire department. So I want to make sure when it comes to football, my entire staff knows the entire football team. So if one person is doing body weights that day, it's not, oh, what's your name? Go through because we're gonna have 120 plus kids on the team for the spring. So it's kind of just quick work, and then we understand each person kind of move and each kind of position group as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it too. Like, and it adds a personal touch. Like that's knowing the athlete's name and knowing more than just like your athletes' names, like especially as a director too. Like that goes a long way because even though your two main priorities for like programming and like for coaching are like football and women's basketball, like at the end of the day, like you're the face of the department, like you're the face of the program. If someone's out sick that day, like you might be the one covering it. And it makes a lot more sense to like, hey, you know everybody that kind of comes in the weight room. Like you're the familiar face again, and like you kind of steer the ship what way it's going. So that's a great way to kind of look at it. That kind of comes in line with what I wanted to talk about was like your transition from like grad assistant bumping up to head and director. Like there's a lot more things that come on your plate that I know you were doing some of the like responsibilities and like the coaching and like you said, it's sink or swim when you get in those positions. But how was that transition? Like what were some of the things that like were just completely new to you as you like worked your way up?
So I think the biggest thing, like when I got hired here as a GA, my old boss, he kind of just assessed us like programs and all that stuff, kind of figured out. And then, yeah, I was a volunteer assistant at my last school, but like, I mean, I was still raw. I mean, I still think I'm raw in this game. Like, but so when he first got in, he just kind of just watched me coach a little bit. He was a fly on the wall, kind of just sitting back, just watching all that stuff. And then after a couple of weeks, he's like, cool, I really don't feel like I have a GA because of how much work I put into, again, when I was at my internship. Yeah, I was an intern, but I busted my ass every single day going to school, working, and being there, putting hours in to continue to learn. Then when I went to Shippensburg, the biggest issue that I had, yeah, I didn't work with football since I haven't been around football since I got done with football. Was diving back into it and understanding field work. Because again, when I just had the Olympic sports, it was just primary weight room that we used. We did some field work, but wasn't as dialed in what it is right now. So I had to dial that in, and then so the transition from full time from GA to full time assistant, honestly, it was just me moving my teams around that my boss had me. He's like, "Hey, you're gonna move these teams, right? You're gonna pick women's basketball and like all this stuff." So like, kind of just understanding that and understanding the teams that I'm working with now. Then when it went from full time assistant to head, now we're adding into, hey, you got budgets, you got this, you have that, you got administrator meetings. You're dealing with things that you don't even want to tell your staff because you're just going to keep it hush hush because you just got to do with all that. So it wasn't like the coaching part is coaching, and that's the easy part. It's the outside stuff to be like, hey, like I think it's like once a month. We have administrative meeting on Wednesday. So like this year, like once a month, I had to dip out. Like my assistants, GAs had to run the first football group, and if it lasted longer, they had to run the second one. So I had to make sure that I trusted them enough, and I do. Hey, let's run that group. Make sure they go through well. While I'm in the meeting right now, trying to figure out stuff, and I'm going to relay the message to you guys, whatever if it's need to. So that's it's kind of just falling into the administrative role a little bit more, figuring out budgeting. That's really it. I mean, the coaching side, it was just kind of picking up teams, moving around a little bit. I mean, coaching is coaching. I love it. So, like, again, I love the new challenges. The biggest challenge was just the administrative role part, the budget, going through all that. Um, that's kind of the biggest challenge, but it was a quick and easy transition. So, yeah, I was kind of blessed with that.
Yeah, those are things that like people forget about like when you're going to be a director and like as an assistant, you hope that like your boss starts to let you kind of in on those things and goes to meetings and kind of shares the insights of like what's coming down the pipeline, like what to expect because you can't send everybody to those meetings and a lot of times you're not allowed to anyway. So to at least you're not privy to it. So to be able to understand like, hey, this is more aspects of the job when you become a head coach, when you become a director. Like these are the things to kind of prepare about, or the things that I do that impact what happens in the weight room walls, but it's not actually happening in there.
Yep.
Like when it comes to that stuff, like who did you lean on, some of your old mentors, or did you lean on some like your supervisor or whoever's kind of overseeing the strength and conditioning department, like maybe an admin to try to like get up to speed? Like we talked about adaptability and just kind of learning on the fly, but was it just you on your own trying to figure out all this stuff, like how to kind of cook the books and do all the budget stuff yourself, like try to figure out scheduling and all those things, or it's just one day at a time?
So me at times I hate asking for help unless if I truly need it. So I kind of just kept it a little bit there. Of course, again, called my mentor that was here for he was the head for 4 years. So yeah, I'm gonna rely on him a lot and ask him. He would help me. He would steer me into direction, never give me the answer because he wants me to figure it out, and I love that. That's one thing what I took from him, and that's what I do to my staff. Like I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to steer you the right direction. Now go figure it out yourself. But kind of just figuring out. I think right now, because again, we have it currently. We have a new AD, then new like right now we have a full new administrative staff right now. So now, currently, this is where it's the biggest change, is because kind of learning them a little bit more. And I'm blessed with our deputy AD who came in. It's Sarah Ramey. She was the strength coach for 20 plus years. She was actually the head strength coach at in-school conference, West Texas A&M. So I've known her since I've been here. And when I found out she got out of the game and became this, I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. Like I have an athletic director that I'm overseeing that was a strength coach that understands like, hey, every year, yeah, we probably got to buy bands, all this stuff. So she's going to be my biggest resource, and right now she has been. Kind of, she's helped me with a lot, and she's only been here, I think, 3 months, maybe four, and her help in these past four has been just tremendous right now, especially like she knows about it, and also I even told my staff, I'm like, it's massive for the game as well. Like if you ever want to just shop talk her, like she has more knowledge than me. Like she's seen everything. So literally just walk down the hallway or shoot an email, be like, hey, can we just shop talk at times? Because I know she probably still misses the weight room at times. She still kind of peeks her head into it a little bit. Um, but no, that's been a huge blessing, I think, for our university, but then also for our athletic department when it comes to strength and conditioning.
Yeah, that's a huge resource, and I know it's right down the hall for you, but for her probably that it feels like such a far distance to kind of be out of the weight room and kind of in an office more so all the time. But to be able to pop in and have that person right there all the time, like to kind of help, like you said, steer your career a little bit and kind of like lean on for guidance and be understanding of like, hey, these are some of our budget restraints. These are the things we need to get, like to go in and tell like an athletic director or whoever's like overseeing your budget, like we have to buy bands twice a year, three times a year. And like, how are we replacing all these things all the time? Like, why are these breaking? Like, and then you try to explain it. It doesn't even have to be a conversation.
Yep.
Like it's second nature. Like, of course we have to do that. Like that's just what you do. We understand that. So that's a huge resource. I'm sure that like takes a lot of pressure off you and be able to bounce ideas and have someone in there. That's great because I've never been in the position like as like the head person. So I'm not like almost like the top of the food chain or the most knowledgeable person, for a lack of a better term, like the most knowledgeable or tenure person like in your department at the top. Because I've always had like someone above me, like more experience that I can, hey, like, what do you think about this to bounce ideas off with? And not to say I'm not gonna bounce ideas off of like people that are my peers or like GAs or interns and stuff like that, but to have someone that's closer to the amount of like wear and tear that you've had or has gone through those experiences before, like being young in the career and being the longest person at the school for you in strength conditioning, like you don't have that mentor like directly where you could talk to every single day. Like you actually have to call or schedule a time. So I'm sure having her there now like probably helps a little bit. But how do you kind of like outside of that resource? I know you talked about like former coaches in the past, but where do you go to for like additional resources or like reaching out to coaches? Like, are you on the road with football? Or are you like attending conferences and stuff like that to kind of like keep adapting and bring it back like to UTPB?
Yeah, so I mean, I travel with football, everything. So I try to shop talk with every single strength coach. I shoot them an email, be like, "Hey, can we talk before the game?" All this stuff. Um, in conference, we actually have a couple of our coaches. We got really great relationships. So when I traveled to one, me and him on Friday night, we went out to eat. Like so, we have a really great relationship when it comes in conference. A couple of out of conference teams, they again at a Division II, it's either they travel them or they don't, just depending on funding at times. So I try to shop talk with every possible coach that I can. And again, every year I always go to the CSCCA one, go there every year. Um, so I love that, continuing to learn, but also just see people that I only see once a year. Like, so that's probably one of my best things is like, yeah, it's a good catch up to see your friends and we can go to all these speakers. What I've realized is that it's kind of those weird, like late night conversations that they're in the hotel. That's where you get like the true, like nitty gritty stuff. And so, like the speakers and stuff, like I love that because I love hearing different things, modalities, everything. But it was kind of weird. Like this conference, I kind of picked it up a little bit more. Well, this past one was like those hotel talks late at night. And I kind of regret of just with a couple of just not be like, hey, can I just listen to this? I don't even want to say anything. Can I just be in a fly on the wall? And I think that's going to be my next goal is like this conference. If that's that, I'm like, I definitely need to just sit in on one and just listen and just be a fly on the wall because the people that were talking on that, like, they won't care. And so I think it was just the thing, like, I had things to do and went to go do some things. So that's probably the biggest thing that going to the conference is that late night talks that you just kind of just hear echoes or even just them outside of just a food place, them just talking like, those are the conversations.
Yeah, those are my favorite. That's kind of all I go to the conference for. Like I'll go see like if one of my friends is presenting, like pop in, or if there's like a presentation that like sounds really good, like a keynote speaker or something like that. But man, the late night talks or like the grungy like speakeasy bars, like where
Yep.
we're all like the master strength coaches or like are hiding. It's a reunion for me too. Like being in it as long as I have and like being as many places, like that's like the one time, like you said, you can see coaches again and like catch up and like inevitably like you're talking just to kind of shoot the shit, but inevitably everybody is a coach and they kind of get back onto like a coaching topic and then you're like, I don't want to talk about business and then talk about something else and like somehow like it starts sparking again. It's just kind of second nature to us, but that's my favorite thing. That's why like I love doing the show and like bringing more people on because now when I go to the conference, like hopefully this year like we'll connect in person then too,
Yeah.
and just be able to go from there. But that was interesting. That's what I wanted to hear too, like because D2 life is different. So like being able to like travel on the road and actually meet up with the coaches, like that's a great opportunity if you have the affordability to do it and like the flexibility within your schedule to go and you're going to get stuff paid for and be able to be a part of the team and like do a working engagement like that. If you're a young coach like or anybody like travel, go see someone else in their own dojo, like try to lift with them, break bread with them, like go enjoy the time and like learn from them because you're probably not going to have an opportunity to visit a lot of these places unless like you're paying a lot of money and going out of your way to go all the way to Louisiana or go all the way to Washington State or wherever you're going to go and play a team. Like it's already convenient. Like do the due diligence to like actually go link up with them and talk some shop.
No, for sure. That's why, and again, like the reaching out part, and I kind of told my GAs, I said, hey, enjoy your break. Like your one job is to talk to three strength coaches while you're like home. I said, figure out how to communicate with them and talk to them. Like continue to branch out because I felt like the biggest thing when I got into the field were like most coaches are going to kind of shy away. Now, more than likely, every coach can be like, yeah, we can talk because and everyone that I reach out to, there's only been a few that I've reached out to, just haven't gotten any responses. Now it could have either they just skipped over my email because again, people who I emailed probably really busy, dealing with a lot of other things, or they read it and just completely forgot to reply. But I said like, hey, your job over this month or 3 weeks that they're gone, go talk to other coaches besides me and like my assistant, because I guarantee you, it's either going to say the very similar to stuff that I'm going to say, or they may just say something that's going to just completely rock your mind and be like, oh, let me try this maybe.
Yeah, and then that the best part about that is too, and having like more members of your staff that are forward thinking and coming in with different thoughts, like they're going back home to different places, like whatever you learn, whatever like is intriguing, like maybe questions about what we're doing or solidifies what we're doing, bring it back. Bring
Yep.
it back and like share it with the staff and like I I don't know if this is just a weird one, but like everybody that does like, hey, we're all gonna read this book and talk about it, like that's great. So like it'll bring up talking points. But what I think is even cooler is, all right, all 10 of us are going to read a different book and you come in and explain it. Like what actually gets more value? Are we all on the same? Okay, if you all want to get on the same page and like learn how people think, that's great. But if you all want to learn 10 different things and we can see what the best idea is or what we can actually implement like to our system, I think that's even better.
No, for sure. I mean, that's why it's like before they left, I wanted to kind of chop away like winter for football about like when they come back, and everyone's in my office. Don't have a big office, so we're kind of just all just plugged right into it. And because like I could easily close my office door, program football, and I'm like, I'm cool with it. But it's my program, it's not the strength and conditioning program. Hey, the school that you went to when you were an intern, what's some things that you saw work? Hey, my old assistant, at your past school, hey, what's certain things? Kind of just build everything into it. So again, I can sign off and say, yeah, it's my program, this is what it is, but it's not. I want to make sure that I can sign off on it, my assistant can sign off on it, my two GAs can. Because if not, and they're not invested in it, will it hurt them coaching? Probably, because they're not bought into the product. And that's the same thing. Like I had their conversation too. I'm like, yeah, we talked about this program, but you guys got to be able to defend the program just like how I can defend it as well. And that was kind of like the last kind of just shop talk meeting that me and the staff had is directed towards my GAs. I'm like, hey, like describe why I'm doing these exercises these days and all this stuff and explain the reasoning. If your reasoning is different than my reasoning, I'm cool with it. You just got to defend it though. Because just in case if an athlete comes up to you that says, hey, why are we doing it paired than this day? You got to be able to explain it. Yeah, you got to dumb it down a little bit for them. But can you explain it? Can you defend it? Cool. Okay. Now I hope you can do that for every program that you have for yourself as well.
Yeah, and that's huge too, because having a bigger staff, having a bigger team, and then like it almost warrants a lot of time a bigger staff to try to give them a better product. You want a united front like between your whole staff. You want everybody might have a different way of kind of relaying the message and like using different coaching like styles and things like that, but at the end of the day, like the vision is the same, like the goal, the intent is the same. There might just be a different approach to each of them. And if an athlete, like you said, if an athlete comes up and is asking questions about it, you don't want one of your assistants to be like, I really don't, I don't feel this. Like that, you start putting that bug in there and that'll start eating away and like that'll chip away at the culture. That'll start like questioning people versus like, now we're all on the same page. This is what we're doing. This is the best thing for you. Like every single coach that I have out here on the floor with us has bought into this program, has put their thought and input into it and is going to coach it to the best of their ability because it's the best product that we can give to you.
No, for sure. That's like the biggest thing too. It's like the program buy-in's that, but also it's the player buy-in. Like that's why again with my staff, what I said, like I want to make sure that they know everyone. Because if they know everyone when it comes to like talk about football because it's all hands on deck, but also know their own athletes, like the buy-in's gonna trump everything. Like you know too, and other coaches know, you can have the greatest program in the world, but your athletes could hate you and they just don't care. You could have the worst program in the world, but if they love you, guess what? That worst program is going to have the greatest results in the world for that semester because they are willing to come into the weight room and just go out, go at it with you, and just continue to work and all this stuff. So like that's where it's the biggest thing for me. It's like programming's programming at the end of the day. Yeah, there's certain things that you can change and all this stuff, but it's the relationships that I have with the athletes to make sure that, hey, yes, when I yell at you, don't take it as a way of like I'm just being a dick at you. It's a way that I care about you so much that I want you to fix the issues. So therefore, down in life, if there's an issue, you know how to problem solve it. Like my job here is to just build better people. And yeah, sometimes in the off season workouts, they absolutely suck. It's going to make you better. It's going to make you work harder. So the buy-in right now, again, kind of just talk about the psychological aspect. Like it's the biggest thing right now. I want to understand their mind. I want to understand their actions. I want them to react to, hey, we got to do this, or I just pull like a complete audible on them, and they just don't like. They're just like, cool, we're at it, cool, whatever. Hey, we had a squat on a Friday, and let's just say I'm not going to do it, but let's just say, hey, our squats normally on a Friday. We come on that next Monday, be like, hey, we're doing that same Friday lift. Like, you know, they're going to be recovered by the time, but like, they're like, oh, coach, it's supposed to be an upper body day. I'll be like, cool, right back to work. So that's where my mindset's kind of slowly changed and be like, can I get them so bought in that no matter what, and be like, cool, they're not going to skip a beat. They're going straight to work.
Yeah, being able to roll with the punches. And I mean, if you have athletes bought into it and you have their best interest in mind, and like you're doing stuff smart, like you said, like if it's squatting back to back, like with a weekend in between and they're recovered, like having the athletes not question it and know like, all right, we're doing this for a reason. Like this isn't just like throwing baloney at a wall and see if it sticks. Like he's doing it for a reason, and we trust the process. We trust what coach is doing. Like you can do anything at that point. And then you're testing the resiliency, you're testing like, hey, can we be flexible? Can we roll with the punches? Like, can we just put our head down and like go to work? Like that's going to pay dividends down the line. And like you talked about, like that's some of the psychological and like culture pieces that are going to bring those new like individual players together and like actually collectively make a team and get them prepared like later on in the fall when they're actually going and playing again. So that's a great way to put it. So kind of shifting a little bit. I know we talked about it's like a little bit of the downtime for everybody, like working on programming for teams like going in the off season. I know women's basketball is still rolling and everything too, but how do you kind of reset? Like what are you doing for yourself to like train and kind of like maybe mess with the football program on yourself? Like do you use the program as like an experiment for yourself, or like how do you still stay involved and train?
Yeah, so right now, currently training, I'm going to be honest, it's been the old man stuff. I mean, I'm 28, but I never got my ACL repaired. I still have a torn labrum in my shoulder. Looking back at it, I should have probably got the surgery. Is it coming back at me a little bit? So right now, I'm going very like simplistic stuff. I'm not worried about how much weight I'm moving anymore. Like my ego's kind of out the door with that. I'm slowly rehabbing it. Once I feel good, yeah, ego's back into the door. Now it's kind of just hammer at it. So right now it's kind of just getting my body back and everything's feeling better. So yeah, this winter we're doing the football stuff. Like I'm guess what? You can't look at me and say, "Hey, I'm tired." Guess what? I'm tired with you, but I'm going to be doing the workout early in the morning while you guys get to sleep in a little bit. And then downtime, I mean, I'm just waiting to fly back, fly to North Carolina, see my brother. I haven't met my nephew yet. I've only met my niece a handful of times, my other niece as well. So again, just seeing family is my biggest reset. I mean, I only see them once a year. I mean, my family's all from the East Coast. They all from New York, but now they all essentially live in the Carolinas. So like, I only see them once a year. So like that 10-day reset when I fly back the 22nd, it's the perfect reset for me. So then with that, I just chill. I don't really work. I will do some programming, all that stuff on my computer, but I know I'm going to come back in time that I can hammer everything away on my computer. Um, but I just want to reset. I guarantee you I'm going to be babysitting. But also the reset right now, like I love cooking. So every day I try to cook food from scratch. I mean, I'm in West Texas, so Italian food's not really a thing. Me being from New York, that's the one thing what I miss the most. So I try to make everything from scratch that's authentic Italian or kind of just anything like that. That's kind of just how I just right now it's the perfect reset for me.
Yeah, that's a good way to reset. Like with the rehab stuff and everything, like that's firsthand experience. Like obviously you don't want athletes to get injured. Like sometimes it's just inevitable it's going to happen like with your own training in that rehab side and then like just on the same kind of thought process, like your first year of college and kind of going through and changing your major and like you said yourself, like just making some mistakes and not really caring about playing football and stuff like that. Like both those things, like whether it's a physical thing, it's like a mental, emotional thing that you're going through and like you're kind of having like just an individual crisis of not knowing what to do or this you understanding like why this is happening to me. I'm sure you've had plenty of athletes that have either come up to you or you can kind of tell are dealing with like some of these troubles yourself. Like, how do you have those conversations with some of your players, like knowing that you can kind of talk from experience? Because it's a personal thing. Like some coaches don't want to just like be super forward and like talk to 120 and say like, hey, I'm dealing with this too. Like sometimes it's more of a one-on-one conversation with the have players, but like how open are you to having those conversations or like discussing with them like the things that you've been through so they can kind of relate and understand that people deal with it just as much and like people can come out on the other side like stronger and better because of it.
I mean, when I first grew up, I was a silent soul. Like I didn't talk at all. Probably with certain things of me just growing up, didn't know how to kind of just deal with or cope with. Of course, being older, now you learn how to cope with it and deal with the scenario. So yeah, I'm completely vocal with every single team that I work with. Like they know how I grew up. They knew the mistakes I made. Not into crazy details, but they know enough that I'm able to relate to almost every single student athlete that I've probably worked with. So with that, like the relationships, like me opening up, yeah, it sucks in the beginning, especially the first time I ever did it, because I'm like, damn, they may judge me right now. But then after you do it, they look at you and be like, Coach, that's real. Like, I don't know that we could relate a little bit. Or like, hey, this year, an athlete had a bad day when it came to practice. You could just tell. And then me and him just talked in my office probably like 40 minutes right after. And he's been with me, and I've been with him for 3 years. And that, like, me and him, we know we go through the same stuff, but us being able to open up about it, just him and me, again, it's the thought of, yeah, like I'm your coach, but it's more than that right now. Like I truly care about you as an individual. And then it goes deeper into that. Like when I first started, like, yeah, I was just like, hey, I'm like just coach, all this stuff. Like I didn't know how deep the buy-in happened until the first athlete that I coached when I was interning, he passed away. Like I saw him on a Friday, he died on a Sunday. And it just hit me. And I was working with him because he was coming back from an injury. Like he was on the basketball team, and the strength coach was like, "Hey, work with him. Like it's just you one on one going through that." He passed away. I'm like shit. Then I had another athlete pass away. Then I had another one. And then I had one this summer. Um, so and it's all by just freak accidents that happened, but it was just the thing of understanding of that you've coached them and you saw them so young, and I'm close to their age. Like you're with them for almost every single day, so you want to make sure. Like I tell my athletes when they're here, my phone's on 24/7. That's why I love my head coach too. He's like, I don't care. You guys can call me at 4 o'clock in the morning. I will answer. Like I'm in the same boat as them. My phone's on loud 24/7 when I'm home. Like I don't care. Like I will go and pick you up. We can talk about life. We can do whatever if you're in a troubled situation. Because I care about you more than just being a student athlete. Because of the fact of me experiencing having four athletes that passed away, I know what it's like seeing you on one day, then like being gone the next. Like it hurts. One of the athletes was just a freshman and he went home over break and he just passed over just a freak incident. So like the buy-in and the cult and like it's not even buying in. I think it's just being a human being, just being real with them. Because at the end of the day, yeah, they're away from family, they're growing up, they're trying to figure themselves out. So at the end of the day, treat them the best way that they can and make them a better person.
Yeah, that's huge. It goes a lot beyond like X's and O's. It goes beyond the weight room. It goes beyond training. Like it's a human aspect, and we said it before. It's like you're in a people business, and like yeah, there's a business side to it, but at the end of the day, we're coaching 18 to like 22-year-old kids essentially. And yeah, the sport, like winning, there's money involved. There's all these there's school, academics, like social life. There's so many things involved in the process, like and days are long and we kind of get swept up in all those things. Sometimes it's like these resets are important because sometimes you forget and you're just going from one thing, rushing to another thing real quick. That when someone's having a bad day, like you could, if you're having a bad day too, you're quick to snap on them too. But being able to take a step back and understand, like, maybe this is something serious, like, okay, maybe I could not being able to see that athlete again on Monday. Like that's and you just saw him like Friday. That was like the last lift. It's definitely eye-opening. And no one you don't want anybody to go through that and experience it. And it's super unfortunate, especially someone so young and to be freak accidents like that. It's you don't want to take those interactions and what you say and the experience and everything for granted because they're going through as much stuff, if not more, that we are.
Yep.
And they want to be able to rely on their coach. They want to be able to rely on their teammates and support staff and people to understand, again, you have your best interest in mind, but like you're not just thinking of their best interest as an athlete, thinking of their best interest as a human, as an individual, as a person, like and you like you said, knowing their name, like that might be enough for an athlete that doesn't want to go talk to their own head coach or talk to one of their teammates. Like they want to talk to someone that like they know and it's not going to like cast judgment on them. That could be enough to like put you in the door where you're the person that they want to like open up with and share because you were opening up and you were being vulnerable in that situation, like telling people that. That's super admirable, and I think more people need to do that in those positions and take a step back from athletics and kind of let them know what you are like personally too, because they can be more comfortable and train better too because of that stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I kind of toss and turn like, do I actually open up? Because like, of course, you hear kids and like all this stuff, and like you hear their stories as well, and then just by kids even talking, or sometimes they will open up to you. You're like, I relate to that, but then sometimes you won't even open up about it. So my point now, like my career, like I'm just an open book. Same things what I will say to women's basketball, I will say to football. And at times, I really don't have a filter, so they kind of look at me. I mean, maybe it's the New Yorker in me that I just talk fast and just don't have filter, so they look at me crazy. But it's all out of the love for them. Like, again, you guys, and I tell them like, I only see family once a year. You're my extended family. Like, don't just think that's a cliche thing. Like, there's a reason why I only see my family once a year. It's because I love what I do, and you guys are involved with that. So just understand that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's awesome, and it's good to see like you share that with them and like let them understand that they are a big part of your life. They're an extended part of your family, but it really does show that like you care about them for more than just and being an athlete, and I think it pays dividends too. So I know it's kind of it's a heavy topic to go through,
No,
and
it
like
is.
it's always hard to kind of come out of that. So I appreciate you sharing though for sure, man. So hey, we'll lighten it up a little bit too, because like any good training session, we end the show with a finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe overtime at the end. But you can go rapid fire or you could take your time on any of them. But you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in strength and conditioning.
Does that got to be one?
No, it's whatever you want. I'll let the question go as however you feel.
Honestly, I'm just gonna say my entire coaching tree that's I've worked under. Like Don Day, you got me into the game. Brian McGovern, you let me be your intern for 2 years. Lori Gleason, you helped me let me take over teams. Bill Bacon, guess what? You let me just take over heavyweight wrestling. This all when I was at Binghamton. And then those three coaches, Don Day, you got me into it. Those three. And then Dennis Kerstetter at Shippensburg. Then Josh Shergill. There's a couple other people that I'm probably missing. people that I grew into the game with from just meeting at conference. That we were both GAs at one point. Now we're here and we're both heads. So it's a cluster. Like there's no huge one influence because I can call them up whenever and they will answer. Um, so yeah, it's my entire tree.
It's always nice to be able to call that tree and like understand that like you can bounce ideas with them. And now you're part of the tree, like you're up in the branches with everybody else and you got more people coming with you. So yeah, it's a hard question always, but that's why I always like hearing other people's answers to kind of see where you came from too. So hey, when you're not coaching, you're not training, we talked a little bit about like reset stuff like at the big game, like after the season, but like day-to-day hobbies. I know like Italian cooking in Texas is hard, but what are some of the other things that kind of like keep you grounded and like keep you entertained that's not coaching related?
I will cook a lot. I think the biggest thing is it's still childish. Okay, I'll still play video games. One, it's a huge reset. Two, again, like I'm going to North Carolina this year, so I'm not going to be able to see friends for like 2 years. So it's not. It's more just us just talking. Like at times we won't even play any games. We will just be BSing and just talking about like, hey, how you doing on this? And it's not even like a phone call. It's like we can get everyone in it. So it's not even like video. Like yeah, we'll play video games at times, but it's other times just talking about life. So it's like a kind of our like friends. Like we can all like just get together and just forget about the outside world and just talk about us and just reconnect.
Yeah, it's a good way to reconnect and somehow it's easier to get everybody on a live like Xbox like game than it is to like try to get everybody on a group call. So
Crazy how it is. You can shoot one text, everyone replies, yeah. And like, well, we could have just called.
yeah. If it's if it's the excuse that you need, like keep having at it. I do that same thing with my family. Like my dad made us, well, he bought me a VR because he knew I wouldn't buy it myself and he was excited about it. And now me and my brothers and him like get on and we were on for a while, like during like a couple of years ago, they were in like South Korea. I was in one time zone. My brother was on the West Coast, one brother was on the East Coast. So we're coordinating like four time zones across the world just to like get on a game and like talk shit with
Yep.
each other. It was
Yep.
fun.
No, it's fun.
Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what do you think you would be doing as a profession right now?
I'd be a teacher.
History specific, or you still stick with
History.
history?
I love history. That was my first love. I still like when we drove to our last game for the bowl game, I was literally watching World War II in color on Netflix. Like I love American history. I love war history. That's what like one of my emphasis was. It just fascinates me.
All right. Hey, so setting up an ideal training day for yourself, what's kind of blasting through the speakers? And when you're done, like what's your favorite like post-training meal?
I'm honestly all over the place with music. I'm pretty sure there was one day that I PR'd on squash while Justin Bieber was in the background because like women's soccer was lifting. Um, Music, if I truly had to pick, I don't know. It depends on the mood. Like if I'm sprinting, I gotta listen to rap because it's like rhythmic and stuff. Lifting, I can go from metal, rap, rock, country. Not really, even though I've been in Texas a little bit longer, it's kind of rubbing off on me. Um, really don't have a huge say or a pick. Post meal, uh, honestly, probably because I didn't go home for Thanksgiving and I made it. So now I have an itch for it again. I made homemade gnocchi with vodka sauce and steak. It's kind of a weird combo, but again, I kind of froze a little bit of gnocchi dough, and I did that for one of my post workout meals. So ideally, right now, that's what my kick is.
That's an interesting combo with steak added in it, but I've never had steak with vodka sauce, so that
No,
I might
so
have
like
to, I might
I
have to
do
try that.
yeah, so I do the gnocchi and vodka sauce in like a bowl. Then I just have a huge steak on the plate.
Oh, okay.
I
I
don't
was like,
mix it. I mean, I might mix it just to see how that is,
hey,
but
it's
I
it's worth a
separate.
shot.
Yeah,
Hey, so last one I got for you for overtime, like what is your most like valuable piece of advice you've received? And if you want to kind of share from who or like what kind of is the one thing that kind of drives you?
advice, always work like a volunteer. It's the biggest thing. Yeah, I'm like my goal was when I got into the field, become a director. Like I didn't care about logos. Like they're still like cool. If I ever go like to a Division I school, that'd be great. Don't care though. I care about training athletes. But my job is not to be complacent. Always work. Like my first day ever being an intern, I want to try to prove something. It's also probably the chip on my shoulder of how I just failed when I was younger, and taught me to learn. So that's probably the biggest lesson that I've been taught is just always work like a volunteer. Doesn't matter who's there, continue to grind.
No, I think that's great advice, and that's obviously a testament to like what we talked about, like you earning the right to like kind of bounce up the ladder, like at your position and like all the places that you were before, they got you to where you are now. And it's something that you don't seem to like show any signs of stopping. Like every single day, like you're trying to get better and if you're passionate about it too, like if you work as a volunteer, like you're in it for the love of like what you're doing. You're not just like looking for the paycheck and everything. Obviously, got to pay the bills and do all that stuff. But if you love what you're doing, like working as a volunteer, that'll pay off eventually. And you'll get to keep doing what you do because you love it. And I think it's great advice for anybody. And hopefully, like even older coaches too, like you get that passion back or you continue to kind of like remember that thing and you'll be in it a lot longer too.
No, for sure. I mean, I literally have do what you love what you do tattooed on me. Like all my tattoos that I have, they're weird, like just quote tattoos that are inspirational. I don't know why I went with those. It's just clearly I'm a huge quote guy and just like psychological. Clearly I'm diving into it more, but I think it's always been the thing about just how I grew up. But yeah, I mean, it's the biggest thing. Just I mean, if I didn't love what I did, I mean, you do what every other person does, go straight into medical sales. And it seems like with every coach.
It's either that or every athletic trainer goes into realty.
Yes, those are two options.
Those are the ones I'm seeing left and right. But hey, I mean, carry around those quotes, whatever kind of keeps you reminded of them. It keeps you grounded. They're yours. So that's awesome, man. Well, hey, like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show today. For anybody that's got any follow-up questions for you, kind of want to reach out, pick your brain on anything like training wise or just kind of some of the topics and stuff we talked about today. Where can they follow you? Where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think Instagram it's coach_Huey. I think Twitter I'm really not on that much. I mean, I am a little bit, but I don't use it a lot. And then honestly, my email, if you go to the University of Texas Permian Basin, just go to staff directory, my email's there. Feel free to hit up whatever. But Instagram's by far my go-to that I'm pretty much on almost daily.
Awesome. Well, hey, we'll link all that stuff in there. So anybody that has got questions, like I said, want to follow you, we'll post all that stuff on there so they can easily get a hold of you. But I appreciate your time, Jared, man. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your winter break, man. And we'll talk real soon.
I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy your holidays.
Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.